Hello and welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith and today we are going to move into day number 2 of our adventure, our solo adventure that is, with Patches the Gearlock as he tries to get to Drellen Paleface in order to take this tyrant down in the city of Paleface. In the last video in day 1 we left Ebendar and we moved to this location here. From here we scouted ahead and we were able to determine that there was a goblin rioter in the distance that we wanted to tackle. So we left him there so that we'll be able to take him out in the next encounter. Now, it is now day number 2, so I'm going to move that counter to 2. So as you can see, we've rotated it, and now we are beginning the second day. From right now, we move right into the encounter phase. So right from the get-go, we move into the very first encounter and see what we get. So let's read this and see what happens. Hardly out of the gate, 15 steps into the journey, 15 steps, and already a Gearlock boot is struck by an arrow. Luckily, no toes were killed. That's good. Teeth are clenched and a painful tug is made while looking around in embarrassment. Yow! Now sufficiently ticked, it's time to return the favor to the ominous figures at the edge of the woods. A commotion breaks out atop the city wall, interrupting all thoughts. Guards have now spotted the brazen intruders and are now notching their arrows. Their help is at the ready. Like it or not, this adventure is underway. So we just headed out of the gates of Ebendar, and then on the way out, essentially from the walls, they actually saw someone that hit us with an arrow, and the guards are now ready to aid us from a distance with this threat. And this threat is likely coming from the goblin rioter who we had scouted ahead with. So we got two choices here. Our choices are to either hail the guards for help, and this essentially right here we'll talk about the battle sequence. So this symbol right here, for those of you unfamiliar with this choice, this symbol in the top right actually correlates to the encounter icons right there where it says this at the very top that says this choice will result in a battle. So in other words, if you choose that, you have to fight. Now the interesting thing about this is there is no peacemaking in this particular situation. We're fighting in both. As you can see, both choices resolve in a battle icon. So there is a difference between the two. The first one here has the guards come in for help during each round of the battle. The arrows from the walls of Ebendar are going to be firing off arrows coming from those guards. They're going to be shooting at the enemies, dealing 1 true damage to each baddie on the battle mat as we face them. So that's really handy, and it says here recommended for first-time adventurers. So I technically should probably choose this, but there is something over here that's a little tempting, and this one says, it's time to show Ebendar what gearlocks are made of. Meaning, yes, it's nice to have a bunch of guards on the walls ready and willing to fire arrows into the fray, help us out, but you'll notice right here in the circle, if we choose to go it alone, we gain a training point that we wouldn't get up here. And that's too tempting for me. I would rather risk it and try to get that extra training point. If we do, it says down here, it says, with Ebendar watching, you feel an extra shot of adrenaline as you prepare for an unassisted battle. So that's really cool. I'm going to go with this. Yeah, I probably should go with the guards' help, but I'm going to risk it and going to go for it to get this training point. Now, if we successfully defeat this battle and we get this training point along with whatever's at the bottom here, and as you can see, there's a progress point on the far left. There's another training point, so we'd end up with 2. And a loot. And then it says here, after either choice, if the battle is lost, place this encounter back on top of your encounter deck. So this is where I was talking about in prior videos, where if you lose these encounters, which you can do, and you don't want to, but if you lose them, you are losing a day. Every single time this day counter is going to tick, and you only have 10 days to get to Drellen. So essentially, if you know you need 6 progress points, you really can only fail. I mean, I'm sure every encounter won't always just be 1 progress point. Maybe there's a difference along the way. But essentially, you can see here just doing the math between 6 and 10, you could fail 4 times and still get 1 shot at Drellen. But who wants just 1 shot? You'd rather get there on your 6th, 7th, or 6th, 7th, or 8th day so that you have a couple shots at him before the 10 days expire. But anyway, getting back to our choice, I'm choosing this one here, which is going to be no aid. So I'm going to put this on very top so I just kind of remember what I'm going for. It'll inspire me with that adrenaline to try to win. So now what we do is we set up the battle, and this is something I haven't even had a chance to talk about really, but a little bit in some of the other videos, but very, very small amounts. And what you do is you trigger before battle effects and skills such as any other Gearlock specific skills we may have, and I don't have anything Gearlock specific for Patches that would trigger at the beginning of a battle for him. There are Gearlocks like Tantrum, for instance, that has like a rage skill that can trigger, and that can start building up essentially, and I believe it starts in his skill dice area, but that doesn't, I'm not 100% sure, I haven't actually played him yet. So now what we do is we do an encounter, we look at our encounter card just to ensure that there's no extra instructions on how to build your baddie queue. Now you guys are going to say, what the heck is a baddie queue? Good question. A baddie queue is essentially building a queue of enemies that are going to come into this mat based on the different pile numbers. So we got 1, 5, and 20. And of course, it wouldn't make any sense to be seeing 20s this early in the game. So there's a really interesting, smart, and efficient mechanic in determining how the baddies come out, or which baddies come out as part of a fight to keep things fresh. Now how this works is whenever you have to form your baddie queue, you determine this by just doing a little simple math. You take a look starting with the current day. So we already know our current day is 2. So we start with a 2, and then you times that by the number of Gearlocks in play. So we were playing with 4 people, that would be 8 baddie points. Now we're only playing with 1, so it's going to be 2 times 1 is 2 baddie points. How do you choose then? So let's say hypothetically that we had, well, actually we'll play it as we have it here. So technically 2 baddie points. If we pick 2 baddie points, it's very easy. You'd obviously be taking the two number 1s as your battle queue. You can kind of set them aside here, and bam, there's my battle queue all set up. There's nothing else in the encounter that specifies I need to do anything additional with that baddie queue. It's good to go. We can start filling them out into the map. However, let's say hypothetically I was playing with 4 people and I had 8 baddie points. How do you fill that with a 1, a 5, and a 20? The game states that you always pull from the highest chip stack possible first. So if you have 8 baddie points to fill, a 20 obviously isn't going to work. A 5 does work, and then you take the remaining 3. That's how you build a queue, and you continue that mentality regardless of whatever the total is when you do your timesing between the days and the Gearlocks. So that gives you an idea as to how that can change with the number of players. It's very scalable, and it makes a lot of sense. So once you've determined how, your baddie queue, for me it's going to be 2 of them. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and start placing them in their appropriate lanes. So we'll take the first one, which we know is the Goblin Rioter. Now we know this because we scouted ahead in the prior day. He's going to end up in the very first lane. Very simple. So he's going to end up in lane number 1. He is specified down here as a melee based on that bottom left 2 swords crossed symbol. He's a melee character, so he will be put right here on the battle map. So what we're going to end up doing is taking his character, and we're going to take the chip that associates itself with lane 1, and we'll put it underneath of him, and then we're going to take a look at his health, and his health rings in at 3. So with 3 health next to that little blood drop there, we're going to go ahead and grab 1, 2, 3 chips, and bam, we've got our baddie with his 3 health underneath of him ready to go. And the blue indicating he should be in this lane. Where does he go? He's not ranged, he's melee. So he will start here. And that's it, done. The other thing you do is you take the initiative die of the baddie, and you take a look at the green symbol there. It says, with the 3 lines in it, and underneath of it, it says 4. That's the initiative of that enemy. So because the Goblin Rioter is the blue lane, he gets the blue die. He's a 4 for his initiative, and the 1 in the bottom right just references which lane this die is talking about, but you can even just use the color. The 1's just there as additional. So you take this and you put it in your initiative meter. Now you know this is, oh shoot, you don't knock it over, but this is where you know essentially who's going first, right? So as of right now, technically he's going first before anybody else. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the second one. Now this one's interesting because we don't know what it's going to be. We scouted ahead and saw that there was a Goblin Rider, but we have no clue who's with him. So let's find out who it is. It is a Dire Wolf Pup. Okay, interesting. So we got a Dire Wolf Pup, and he will be coming in lane number 2. So lane number 2 is right here, specified by the 2. So same thing as we did for the Goblin Rider. We put him in with the chip underneath to associate his lane. And then we take a look at the blood drop up in the top. It says a 3, so he's going to get 1, 2, 3. And there we go. And where does he land? Is he in melee or is he ranged? He's melee. Now, the one thing that doesn't matter too much when you're playing solo is, like I'd mentioned before, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but there's a symbol right above the name. There's a crosshairs with kind of like a person in there. What does that mean? If I just want to make sure I didn't miss this prior in the video, but when the person appears to just be standing and that's all you can see, it means that this character, when you're playing with more than one gear lock, will go for the weakest character when he tries to move and attack. That's essentially who he'll target. If you get a particular, now both of these guys are appearing to go after the weakest based on just having kind of like the symbol of the individual with his arms down. But if you get one with a symbol of an individual in the crosshairs with his arms up, then that means you're going after the strongest character or strongest gear lock. But when you're playing solo, you're only playing one gear lock anyway, so both of them hate you and they both want to kill you, so you don't have to worry about that as much, at least not yet. There might be a game mechanic that comes into play that uses it, but as of right now, nothing does. So the other thing you don't want to forget, of course, is the initiative dice. So his initiative is 3. So he's going to go underneath of the initiative of the Goblin Rider. So the Goblin Rider's a little bit quicker, and it's going to go a little bit earlier in the round or in the initiative track. So the next thing that you do, and I'm just going to double check one thing really quick, because I just want to make sure that I just want to make sure that I was kind of doing this the right way in terms of the initiative meter. But essentially at this point now you have you've set up your battle mat, everything's good to go. And now what you do is you come over here and you grab your actual gear lock, and you can actually technically just take their initiative die first. So before you add your gear lock to the mat to strategically put them wherever you want, you're going to roll your initiative die to determine kind of where in the battle mat he's going to show up. So we're going to roll this. We got a 3. Now a 3, when there's any ties involving a gear lock, the players get to choose. And I obviously want to go before. I don't want to get hit twice before I get a chance to hit. So I'm going to put myself in the middle. So that way we've got this kind of a setup. Now what happens is once the initiative has been set like this, it's set like this for the rest of the battle. It does not change unless there's a game effect that could impact the spot at which your die lands. So in other words, the numbers that are represented on the dice here in the initiative meter only matter when you're setting up the queue at the very beginning, the first round of this whole thing, right? Once that round goes by, pretend these numbers don't even exist. The only thing that matters at that point is just what color associates who's going next. What could happen is you could get a card at some point that would say, move the initiative of baddie, this baddie up 2 spots, they'll say. Something along those lines. And that just means shuffle it up 2. So that's where you, like in later rounds, you stop caring, really after the first round, you stop caring about the numbers on the dice. They're just there for the initial setup. And then after that, you just worry about the colors, right? So just remember that. Okay, so now that we've set that up, we actually get to take our wonderful leader, Patches, the only one in our party of gear locks currently, and we got to figure out where we want to put him. Now Patches can't go on a range spot. The reason he can't go on a range spot is because he's specified as a melee character, so he can only go on one of these 4. So when you're sitting there kind of deciding what you want to do, you want to take a look at the enemies you're facing. Both of these guys we know only have 3 health. So they're even that way. They both have 1 attack die they can chuck at me. So they're both dangerous. One has a mischief of 1 and one has lashback. I don't know what those are very handily off the top of my head. So what I'm going to do is you quickly reference your reference sheet that I had talked about before. And it'll give you a heads up on all of the different baddie skills and encounter terms that you need to know. So mischief 1. What does mischief do? So mischief says, mischief number is what it's showing. So you remove that number of dice, player's choice, from the target's active slots before attacking. So in this particular case, his mischief 1 would cause me to remove dice from that number of dice, so 1 dice, from my active slot if I had any. So if I had a shield up here kind of helping me to defend against him, he could remove it before he attacks. That's what mischief is. Kind of makes sense. It's thematic. Now, lashback, what does lashback do? Lashback sounds like kind of like a hit afterwards. If hit by an adjacent opposing unit, this unit will immediately do a number of damage back. Cannot lashback on a blow that defeats this unit. Okay. So lashback, let me just read that again. If hit by an adjacent opposing unit, so like if I hit him, This unit will immediately do damage back. Okay, so he's just going to essentially just do damage back at me for the same amount. Ooh, that's nasty. They're really bad. That's horrible. So essentially if I attack him, there's no number on this one though. Okay, so when there's no number, if hit by an adjacent opposing unit, this unit will merely do number of damage back. So when there's no number on when there's no number next to the symbol, so essentially if it said like lashback 2, then you'd be able to go ahead and you'd hit me for 2. But essentially when it just says the word lashback with nothing else, it's specified as being 1. So essentially he would lash me back for 1. Because it doesn't specify a number beside it. But I'm sure there's some baddies in this pile. Like I could probably go through maybe some of these other ones that I'm not currently using and probably find somebody in a different pile that potentially has lashback. Maybe not. I say that and then I probably won't have a good example of one. Where is it? If I can't find it quickly, I'll just skip past it. Yeah, I don't see it, so I'm gonna kind of jump past that. We'll figure that out later. Yeah, we'll figure that out later. So, so that's that. So essentially, I need to figure out where I want to be on the mat. Here, 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 here. And if we know that blue's going first, this guy's gonna be the first one to attack. On a monster's turn, they are allowed to move 2 movement, and they cannot move diagonal. They have to move orthogonally, so they can only move this way. But regardless of where I sit on the map, they're going to find me, because if I put myself here, he can get there and get, like, I can't go anywhere that both of them can't get to me. So for me to try to hide in a corner or go to the far side doesn't make any sense. I might as well just get myself right up against whoever it is I want to attack, because regardless, both of them are coming at me. So I'll just put myself right here for now. Once you get ranged characters as enemies coming in, that's when the movement really seems to open up, because ranged characters can hit you from anywhere on the mat. There's no line of sight, it's just they can hit anything. And so you're going to want to take them out quick. At least that's the strategy on the easy ones. I don't know, the tougher baddies start to bring in all kinds of crazy extra stuff that you have to do, and it just kind of gets really crazy. So this essentially now has, I placed the gear lock into the prep area. Everything's in the appropriate positions. The round counter die has to always be set to 1, which I've already done as rounds go through. We go to 2, we go to 3, we go to 4, we go to we go to 5. And then finally, when we hit 6, we go to the blood round, which means every single individual on the mat at the beginning of their turn takes a wound. It's considered like the exhausted round, where people are just so bloody tired that they're actually bleeding. I said bloody tired. Okay, so essentially we've got everything set that way. And then we trigger the start of battle effects. One thing to keep in mind with Patches is, as of right now, he's using his regular side, not his crazy innate +1 side. So on the regular innate side, this recovery comes into play. So I'm going to stop the video here. I think this is a good place to stop, because we can go jump right into the battle of the next one, and we'll jump right into it now that I've explained it. So I hope you guys are enjoying. If you are, give me a thumbs up. I hope to see you in the next episode. We are going to take these guys down and continue our adventure deeper into Daylor. Until next time, guys, keep on rolling solo.